The histories of East Africa and the explorer of European before the official colonization, especially in Ethiopia, for example, for the advantages of colonization of the Oromo peoples under the Minilik-II at the early of the 19th century. East Africa, 1882–85. Solelet in Obok in 1882. In 1881, Solelet was given charge of a commercial mission to the Gulf of Tajura and the Kingdom of Shua. Solelet was recruited as general agent of the Société Française d'Obok. The port of Obok had been occupied by the French since 1856, but little had been done to develop it. The commercial station at Obok was to receive the products of Shua, including ivory, coffee, hides, and the musk of civets for use in perfume. In January 1882, Solelet established a factory at Obok, Djibouti. In the middle of the year, he received a caravan of hides sent by Menelik, the negus of Shua and future Ethiopian emperor. This was enough to convince him that a great emporium could be established on the shores of the Gulf of Tajura to the south of Obok. Solelet built a tower at Obok that was blown down by the wind in 1885. A penitentiary was later built at this location. Solelet set off to explore the routes of the caravans carrying salt and other goods in the Afar trade to find an alternative to the Isa-Somali routes that terminated at Zila. In October 1882, Solelet joined his associate Lion Chefnews at Shua. Their company, which was to have supplied arms to Menelik, went bankrupt, and Solelet found he was a dependent rather than a partner of the king. The king of Shua gave him large tracts of land and granted him a concession to build a railway to the Gulf of Aden. Until Solelet had arrived, the Italian and French traders had tried to avoid disputes and display a common European front. By 1883, there were constant quarrels as Pietro Antonelli tried to become the main advisor to Menelik in place of Solelet. 42. Solelet visited the kingdom of Kaffa in 1884. 36. He described the trade of Bonga as primarily slaves, coffee, musk of civets, coriander, and ivory, with a turnover of $200,000 and $300,000 a year. 43. He left Shua in the middle of 1884. 40. In August 1884, Solelet and Chefnews crossed the Sultanate of Assa during their return journey from Shua, with the Sultan's permission, causing some alarm to Menelik. 44. Solelet returned to Europe in 1884, soon afterwards returning to Shua. 36. For his work in Ethiopia, he was awarded the Cross of the Legion of Honor. 45. In 1884, Obok was upgraded to a naval coaling station. 38. Arms dealer, 1885–86. Paul Solelet is located in Ethiopia. Shua Har Obok Obok Tajura Tajura Aden to Kaffa, from Kaffa to Bonga, from Bonga to Ankober, from Ankober to Aussa, from Aussa to locations in Ethiopia. Towards the end of his life, Solelet became involved in arms trafficking in Ethiopia. Arthur Rimbaud had been established at Harar in 1881 as the agent of an Aden-based company belonging to Alfred Barty of Lyon. In 1885, both Solelet and Rimbaud started their own businesses as arms dealers. They teamed up in January 1886 for a major arms deal. The goods were old rifles that cost 7 or 8 francs each in Liège or France, but could be sold for about 40 francs to the king of Shua. The costs and risks were high. Rimbaud wrote that the people along the route were Denkalis, Bedouin grazers, and Muslim fanatics. Although the caravan was armed and the Bedouins only had spears, all caravans were attacked. Rimbaud's partner Pierre Labatut received the merchandise in Aden, while Rimbaud installed himself at Tajura to organize the caravan. Meanwhile, Solelet, after a short stay in France where he promoted Menelik's cause, embarked at Marseille on January 31, 1886 for Obok. He wrote that he intended to go from there to Shua to continue the work of rapprochement between Shua and France. His expedition would be funded by his agreement to accompany the convoy of arms and ammunition from Obok to Shua. The arms were landed at Tajura in February, but could not be moved inland because Léonce Lagarde, governor of the new French administration of Obok and its dependencies, issued an order on April 12, 1886 prohibiting the sale of weapons. Death and legacy, 1886–1942. In 1886, Solelet published 2 versions of his voyages to Ankober and Kaffa. Obok, Lachoa, Shua. Kaffa was anecdotal, aimed at the general reader. The more complete version included his travel journal and letters addressed to Gabriel Gravier, Fr., honorary president of the Normandy Geographical Society, who published it after Solelet's death as Voyages en Ethiopie. On September 10, 1886, Paul Solelet died of sunstroke in a street in Aden at the age of 44. He and Rimbaud were still trying to move the shipment of muskets from Tajura. 40. Rimbaud found another partner, but continued to struggle and lost his investment. He suffered a leg injury which was poorly treated, and died in April 1891. Lion Chefneuz went on to develop the trade of Djibouti with Ethiopia. Bust of Soleilat in Nîmes, later moved and then melted down. The geographer Élisée Reclus, who created the 19-volume Géographie Universelle, 1875–94, saw Soleilat as one of the best explorers of the 19th century. The historian Henri Brunschwig, Fr., saw him as only an imprudent exploiter of the geographical movement. The sculptor Jean Barnaby Amy made a monument to Paul Soleilat. 1888 Nîmes, the bust was installed next to the Esplanade in Nîmes, opposite the arena. After World War I, 1914–18, a war memorial was erected in place of the bust, which was moved to the triangular grove of the Jardin de la Fontaine. During World War II, 1939–45, on February 5, 1942, the bust was removed to be melted down. His action was used Minilik-II to controlling the Aramo land, which is not impossible for the Abyssinian from 13th century to the time of Minilik II, or for about 600 years before Minilik II.